The great doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a sound like thunder. Captain Minho walked forward, his black uniform crisp and clean. Behind him came Ambassador Jiho and military attaché Sun Wu. Their footsteps echoed in the massive hall. The chamber was huge, bigger than any building on Earth. The ceiling stretched up so high it disappeared in shadows. Around them sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Each species had their own section, their own special chairs or platforms or floating pods. Minho had studied them all during the long trip here. The Vorthak looked like living crystals, their bodies catching light and throwing it back in rainbow colors. They were tall, maybe 3 meters high, and when they moved, they made soft ringing sounds like wind chimes. The Nebulans were stranger still. They looked like clouds of glowing gas, purple and blue, held together by some kind of technology Minho didn't understand. The Chitauri were the most frightening. Giant insects with sharp claws and black eyes that never seemed to blink. There were others too. The fish-like aquarians in their water tanks. The rock creatures called lithoids. The energy beings that looked like living lightning. Dozens of species, all of them older than humanity. All of them more advanced. All of them looking at the 3 humans like they were some kind of joke. "State your business," said High Counselor Vexathari. His crystal body flashed with colors that hurt to look at. His voice sounded like breaking glass. Jiho stepped forward. He was a good diplomat. Calm, patient. He had spent years learning to speak the common galactic language without making mistakes. "Honored counselors," he said. "We come from Earth, the 3rd planet of the Sol system. We request membership in the Galactic Council." The reaction was immediate. Laughter. Not human laughter, but the sounds these aliens made when they found something funny. The Vorthak made high ringing noises. The Chitauri clicked and buzzed. Even the serious Nebulans swirled faster, which Minho had learned meant they were amused. "Earth?" said another voice. This came from Counselor Zephin, a Nebulan whose gas cloud was darker than the others. "That little world at the edge of the Orion Arm? We know of it. You have barely invented faster than light travel. Your people still fight wars among themselves. We have achieved planetary unity," Jiho said. His voice stayed calm, but Minho could see his hands shake slightly. "We have developed FTL technology. We have peaceful intentions and wish to trade and learn from other species." More laughter. Louder this time. "Peaceful intentions?" The voice came from the Chitauri section. Minho looked up to see War Prime Klaxeth, his mandibles clicking together. "Your history shows nothing but violence. You wage war over resources, over ideas, over the color of your skin. You are primitives." Sun Wu's jaw tightened. As a military man, he understood violence, but he also understood that sometimes violence was necessary. The aliens seemed to think they were better, but Minho wondered if they had ever really faced a threat that tested them. "Every species goes through growing pains," Jiho said. "We have learned from our mistakes. We offer our knowledge, our culture, our friendship to the galaxy." "Your knowledge?" Vexathari's crystal body flashed brighter. "What knowledge could you possibly have that we do not? Your species has existed for what, 200,000 years? The Vorthak civilization is 60 million years old. The Nebulans have existed since this galaxy formed. You are children playing with toys you barely understand. Your technology is crude," added another voice. This came from a lithoid, their rocky form grinding as they spoke. "Your ships are slow, your weapons are weak, your minds are simple." "But they are amusing," said Zephin. The gas cloud swirled in what Minho had learned was the Nebulan equivalent of a smile. "Look at them. So small, so soft. And they think they can sit with us as equals." The laughter grew louder. Minho felt his anger rising, but he pushed it down. Sun Wu's hand had moved slightly toward his sidearm, but he stopped himself. "They were here as diplomats, not soldiers. We do not ask to be equals immediately," Jiho said. "We understand we must prove ourselves. We ask only for the chance to do so." "Oh, you will have your chance," said Vexathari. The laughter began to die down. "The council is generous. We will grant your request." Minho felt a moment of hope. Then he saw the way the other aliens looked at each other, the way they seemed to share some private joke. Earth will be granted probationary membership, Vexathari continued. You will have rights to your home system and… He paused, checking a display that appeared in the air near him. 3 nearby systems, K447, M223, and L891. Sunwoo knew those designations. He had memorized every system within 50 light-years of Earth. Those systems had nothing. Dead worlds, no resources, no value. You will have no voting rights, Vexathari continued. You may not build military vessels above Class 2 level. You may not establish colonies without council approval. You may trade only with species that choose to trade with you. The conditions kept coming, each one more limiting than the last. They were not being welcomed into the galactic community. They were being given a cage and told to be grateful for it. Furthermore, said War Prime Klaxith, any disputes involving humans will be decided by this council. You have no right of appeal. You may not form military alliances. You may not develop certain technologies without permission. What technologies? Jiho asked. Any that we decide are too dangerous for your level of development, came the reply. The meeting went on for another hour. More conditions, more limitations, more laughter at humanity's expense. Finally, it was over. The 3 humans were escorted out by guards who looked like they were trying not to laugh. Outside the chamber in the corridor that led to the landing platforms, Jiho finally spoke. That could have gone better, he said. Sunwoo made a sound that might have been agreement. They think we're a joke. We got what we came for, Minho pointed out. Membership, even if it's not what we hoped for. Did we? Sunwoo looked back at the massive doors they had just exited. Or did we just paint a target on ourselves? The trip back to their ship was quiet. Around them, aliens went about their business. Some stared at the humans with curiosity. Others ignored them completely. A few pointed and made sounds that were probably laughter. On the ship, as they prepared for the journey home, Minho called Earth. The communication delay was only a few seconds thanks to the quantum relay stations, but it felt much longer. How did it go? Asked General Taehyun. His face appeared on the main screen, tired but hopeful. We're in, Minho said. Barely. He explained the conditions, the limitations, the way they had been treated. As he spoke, he watched Taehyun's expression change from hope to anger to something else, something cold. I see, the general said when Minho finished. And they think this is generous? They think we're primitives, Sunwoo said. Dangerous primitives who need to be controlled. Maybe they're right, Jiho said quietly. Maybe we are primitive compared to them. They have technologies we can barely imagine, ships that could destroy our entire fleet without effort. They've been traveling the stars since before humans discovered fire. Maybe, Taehyun agreed, but primitive doesn't mean stupid, and being underestimated can be an advantage. The connection ended. The ship began its journey home. As they traveled through space past alien ships and stations, Minho thought about what had happened. The laughter, the dismissal, the way they had been treated like children asking adults to let them sit at the big table. They're only humans, he remembered one of the counselors saying. The phrase had been meant as an insult, as a way to dismiss them, but as Minho stared out at the stars, he wondered if the aliens understood what it really meant to be human. They saw weakness. They saw a short lifespan and soft skin and simple technology. They didn't see the stubbornness, the ability to adapt, the way humans could take the worst situation and find a way to survive, to grow stronger. The aliens had just made their biggest mistake. They had given humanity something to prove, and humans, when they had something to prove, could be very dangerous indeed. The journey home would take 2 weeks. Minho spent it planning, not for celebration, not for acceptance of their new status for war. 15 years had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council. To most of the galaxy, humans had settled into their role as a minor species. They worked their small colonies on worthless worlds. They traded for basic goods. They caused no trouble. The aliens had forgotten about them, just as they had forgotten about dozens of other small species that came and went in galactic politics. Humans were background noise. Unimportant. This was exactly what Admiral Taehyun had hoped for. He stood in the command center of Installation 7, deep inside an asteroid in the belt around Sol. Through the reinforced windows he could see the construction yard stretching away into the darkness. Massive ships taking shape under the hands of human workers and automated systems. Ships that officially did not exist. "Report," he said to Captain Nari, head of human intelligence. "All sectors. Operating normally," she replied. "The Vorthak increased patrols in their border systems, but they're not looking at us. The Chitauri are having another breeding war. The Nebulans are focused on some research project near the galactic core." Taehyun nodded. The aliens were predictable. They had their own problems, their own interests. None of those interests included watching the humans who were quietly working their mining colonies and staying out of galactic politics. "What about the new ships?" he asked. "Batch 47 finished construction yesterday," said Commander Kyung from his position at the tactical display. "That gives us 800 completed vessels in the hidden fleet, all equipped with the new drives and weapon systems. 800 ships, each one more advanced than anything in the official Earth Defense Force. Each one built with technologies that the galaxy thought humans were too primitive to understand. But humans were very good at learning, and they were even better at improving on what they learned." Dr. Jiwon approached from the research section. Her team had been working around the clock for 15 years, taking apart every piece of alien technology they could get their hands on, buying it, trading for it, sometimes stealing it, all perfectly legal under their trade agreements. "The new FTL drives are ready for installation," she reported. 30% faster than anything the Vorthak have, 50% more efficient than standard galactic drives, and completely undetectable by current sensor technology. "How?" asked Taehyun. "We based them on Nebulan quantum phase technology," Jiwon explained. "But we improved it. Combined it with Chitauri energy focusing systems and Vorthak crystal matrix storage. No single species would recognize the final product because it uses elements from all of them. That had been the key to everything. The aliens saw themselves as separate, superior species. They didn't share their best technology with each other. But they would trade with humans for raw materials, for food, for art and music, and other things they found amusing. They never imagined that the primitive humans were taking their technology apart and putting it back together in ways that none of them had thought of." "What about communications?" Taehyun asked. "Quantum entanglement networks are fully deployed," said Major Yuna. "Instant communication between all hidden bases, all sleeper cells, all deep space assets, complete communication blackout if needed. The galaxy's communication networks run through predictable relay stations. We can cut them off from each other whenever we choose." Taehyun smiled. The aliens thought their communication technology was impossible to intercept or jam. They were right about interception, but jamming was different. Humans had found ways to disrupt the quantum fields that the galactic networks depended on. When the time came, every alien species would be talking to themselves. "Personnel status?" he asked. General Seojin stepped forward. He was in charge of training the new kind of human soldier that the coming war would require. "All military personnel have completed xenobiology training. Every soldier can identify alien weak points, understand alien psychology, and speak at least 3 alien languages. Special forces teams have infiltrated 47 alien worlds as traders, researchers, and diplomats. They suspect nothing. Nothing. To them, we're just curious humans trying to understand the galaxy. They find it charming that we want to learn their languages and customs. They have no idea we're studying them for weaknesses. That was another alien mistake. They saw human curiosity as proof of their primitive nature. A more advanced species wouldn't need to ask so many questions, wouldn't need to study so hard to understand things that should be obvious. They didn't understand that human curiosity was a weapon. Every question a human asked was gathering intelligence. Every cultural exchange was a scouting mission. Every trade agreement was a chance to map their systems and understand their capabilities. Industrial production? Taehyun asked. Exceeding all projections, replied Chief Engineer Do-hyun. The hidden facilities are producing war materials at rates that would surprise even us if we didn't see it happening. Raw materials from the mining colonies, processed in facilities that the aliens think are just enlarged mining equipment, weapons that appear to be mining tools until they're activated, ships that look like cargo haulers until their real systems come online. The genius of the plan was its simplicity. Humans had been given worthless systems to work with. Dead worlds, with no resources that anyone else wanted. So the aliens ignored what humans were doing there. They saw mining ships coming and going. They saw industrial development that looked normal for a growing species. They didn't see the massive underground facilities, the weapon testing ranges hidden in crater fields on dead worlds, the shipyards built inside asteroids that were hollowed out and turned into construction sites. Any problems with security? Taehyun asked. None, said Intelligence Officer Minji. The alien intelligence services don't even monitor us seriously. They have files on humanity, but they're 15 years out of date. They know about our official fleet, our official colonies, our official technology. They have no idea about any of this. She gestured around the command center. Through the windows, work continued on the hidden fleet. Thousands of humans working in shifts around the clock, building the tools that would reshape the galaxy. They see what they expect to see, Taehyun said. A minor species struggling to survive in systems no one else wants. Primitive humans with primitive technology, happy to trade raw materials for things they can't build themselves. Speaking of trade, said Economic Coordinator Byum, the cultural exchange programs are working beyond our best projections. Alien species are fascinated by human art, music, literature, and entertainment. We're gathering psychological profiles on entire populations through their responses to our cultural products. That had been an unexpected advantage. The aliens were ancient species with old, established cultures. They had seen everything, done everything, created everything they thought was worth creating. Then humans arrived with fresh perspectives, new ideas, different ways of thinking about art and beauty and entertainment. The aliens found human culture refreshing. They studied it, discussed it, analyzed it. They wrote papers about human creativity and held conferences about human artistic development. They never realized that every human cultural product was carefully designed to reveal alien psychology, that every song, every story, every piece of art was a test designed to understand how different species thought and felt and reacted. Phase 2 preparations? Taehyun asked. Ready to implement on your order, said Strategic Coordinator Jisoo. Sleeper assets are in position throughout alien space. Strike packages are ready for deployment. Communication jamming systems are installed and tested. Economic warfare protocols are loaded and ready. Taehyun nodded. Phase 1 had been about building capabilities while staying invisible. Phase 2 would be about positioning assets for the war that he knew would eventually come. Humans and aliens were too different to coexist peacefully forever. The aliens' arrogance would eventually push them too far. When that happened, humanity would be ready. Timeline estimates? He asked. Based on current alien expansion patterns and resource conflicts, we estimate major galactic instability within 5 to 10 years, Jisoo replied. Probability of human involvement in a significant conflict approaches 90%. And our preparations? We will be ready for anything they can throw at us. More than ready. Taehyun walked to the main display screen. It showed a map of the galaxy. Human space was marked in blue. A tiny cluster of systems at the edge of everything. Insignificant. But connecting those systems were thin lines that only humans could see. Supply routes, communication networks, hidden bases, sleeper ships. A web of preparation that stretched across the galaxy. The aliens thought they had contained humanity. They thought they had put the dangerous primitives in a cage where they could be watched and controlled. They had no idea that the cage had no walls, that humanity had been quietly spreading through the galaxy for 15 years. That human agents were in their governments, their militaries, their research institutions. That human technology was advancing faster than anyone imagined. That human strategic planning was preparing for scenarios that the aliens couldn't even imagine. They still laugh about us, Taehyun said quietly. Yes, sir, Nari replied. Last week, a Vorthak comedian made jokes about humans at a major entertainment event. The strike teams were ready. The weapons that had been built in secret for 15 years were powered up and targeted. In 1 hour, the galaxy would learn what happened when you killed intelligence officer Guan had served the Chitauri hegemony for 30 years. He had survived 3 breeding wars, 2 territorial expansions, and countless minor conflicts. He thought he had seen everything that warfare could offer. He had never seen anything like the readings his sensors were showing him now. Commander, he called to his superior, War Prime Thaxic. I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout our space, ships decloaking everywhere. Impossible, Thaxic replied. Our sensors would have detected any fleet approaching our territory. What you're seeing must be sensor ghosts or equipment failure. Guan checked his instruments again. The readings were getting stronger. Sir, I'm showing over 400 vessels in our space. Large ones. They're not using any propulsion systems I recognize. War Prime Thaxic moved to the sensor station. He was an old warrior, his carapace scarred from decades of battle. He had commanded Chitauri fleets since before humans had even discovered faster-than-light travel. Show me, he ordered. The tactical display lit up with red markers. Ships appearing throughout Chitauri space, not in any recognizable attack formation, but positioned with surgical precision near every important facility, every military base, every population center, by the Hive Mother. Thaxic whispered. Where did they come from? Unknown, sir. They're not matching any known ship designs in our database. But, sir, I'm detecting human energy signatures. Human? Thaxic's mandibles clicked in what would have been laughter if he wasn't so confused. Humans don't have ships like this. Their entire fleet consists of maybe 50 primitive vessels. These readings show advanced technology beyond anything in our files. Guan was running every scan he could think of. Sir, I'm also detecting disruption of our communication networks. Someone is jamming our quantum relay systems. That's impossible. Only the most advanced species have jamming technology that's sophisticated. Sir, another technician called out. I'm receiving reports from installations throughout our space. They're all reporting the same thing. Large, unidentified vessels, appearing without warning. War Prime Thaxic activated the emergency communication system, or tried to. The quantum relay network that connected all Chitauri forces was completely silent. We're cut off, he said quietly. Someone has severed our communications with the rest of our space. Who could do this? Guan asked. Even the Vorthak don't have this level of electronic warfare capability. Before Thaxic could answer, the main communication screen activated. A human face appeared. Not the primitive, desperate human they had dealt with during the colony evacuation, but someone else. Someone wearing a military uniform that Guan didn't recognize. I am Supreme Commander Minjae of the Human Defense Force, the figure said. I am speaking to all Chitauri installations simultaneously. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Thaxic found his voice. Surrender? You're humans. You have no military capability that could threaten us. You killed our children, Minjae said simply. 30 of them to make a point about how powerless you thought we were. You were wrong. The display changed to show tactical information. Ship positions, weapon signatures, target designations. Guan stared at the data in growing horror. This can't be accurate, he said. These readings show a fleet that's more advanced than anything in galactic space. Humans don't have technology like this. We've had 15 years to prepare for this moment, Minjae continued. 15 years to study your weaknesses. 15 years to build the weapons that will end your species. End our species? Thaxic was starting to understand that this was not some elaborate bluff. You're talking about genocide. You started it when you killed children to intimidate their parents. We're finishing it. The communication ended. Around the command center, alarms began sounding. Reports poured in from across Chitauri space. Military installations going offline. Communication networks failing. ships disappearing from sensor screens. Status report, Thaxk ordered. Sir, I'm reading weapon discharges throughout our territory. Whatever these ships are using, it's not like any technology in our database. Entire installations are being destroyed with single shots. Guan pulled up the sensor data from their home system's defense platforms. What he saw made his exoskeleton go cold. Sir, look at this, he said. The display showed the approach of a single human vessel toward Chitauri Prime, the heart of their civilization. The ship was enormous, easily the size of their largest battleships, but its design was unlike anything they had ever seen. As they watched, the ship came within range of the planetary defense grid. Hundreds of weapon platforms opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams, particle cannons, and missile swarms converged on the human vessel. None of them hit. The ship moved through the defensive fire like it was dancing. Every shot missed by meters, or passed through empty space where the ship had been microseconds before. Its defensive systems seemed to know exactly where each attack would come from and how to avoid it. Then it fired back. A single beam of energy lanced out from the human ship. It struck the command center of the defense grid and kept going, passing through the installation like it wasn't there, continuing into the planet's surface, burning a hole 3 kilometers deep into the crust. The entire planetary defense grid went silent. How? Guan whispered. How did they know exactly where our command center was? How did they avoid our targeting systems? The answer came as more reports arrived. Human ships throughout Chitauri space were demonstrating the same impossible accuracy. They knew where every critical system was located. They knew how to disable entire installations with single precise strikes. They were fighting like they had detailed blueprints of every Chitauri facility. They've been studying us, Thaxk said quietly. For years, they know our technology better than we do. The communication screen activated again. This time it showed multiple human faces, fleet commanders reporting to their supreme commander. Chitauri military command structure eliminated, reported one. All major installations offline. Communication networks completely severed, said another. They cannot coordinate any response. Industrial facilities destroyed or captured, came a third report. They have no capacity to build new weapons or ships. Population centers secured, said a fourth voice. Civilian populations are contained but unharmed pending further orders. Guan realized he was listening to the systematic dismantling of his entire civilization. In less than 4 hours, the humans had done what no enemy had ever accomplished. They had completely defeated the Chitauri hegemony. How many ships do they have? He asked. I'm reading at least 800 combat vessels, came the reply from another technician. All of them more advanced than our best ships, all of them operating with perfect coordination. Where did they come from? How did they build so many ships without anyone noticing? Warprime Thaxk was staring at the tactical display with the expression of someone whose entire understanding of the galaxy had just been shattered. The mining ships, he said quietly. Sir. For 15 years we've seen human mining ships in their systems. Cargo vessels, industrial equipment. We thought they were primitive, struggling to extract resources from worthless worlds. Understanding began to dawn on Guan. The ships were carrying more than mining equipment. They were building a fleet, right under our noses. In systems we ignored because we thought they were worthless. The communication screen activated one more time. Supreme Commander Minjay appeared again, but now the display also showed the bridge of his ship. Behind him, Guan could see human officers working with calm efficiency. These were not the desperate, primitive humans that the galaxy knew. These were professional soldiers operating with military precision that rivaled the best in galactic space. Warprime Thaxk, Minjay said. I have an offer for you. What kind of offer? Thaxk asked. Unconditional surrender of all Chitauri forces. In exchange, your civilian population will be relocated to suitable worlds outside of what is now human territory. And if we refuse, then your species becomes extinct in the next 6 hours. Every world you've ever lived on becomes uninhabitable. Every ship you've ever built becomes scrap metal. Every member of your species dies. Guan looked at the tactical display. Human ships surrounded every Chitauri world. There was no escape, no possibility of rescue, no hope of victory. "You're bluffing," Thaxic said. "No species commits genocide. The Galactic Council would never allow it." "The Galactic Council allowed you to kill our children," Minjay replied. "They called it a peaceful resolution. They made it clear that human lives have no value in galactic law. So we have decided to operate outside galactic law. You can't destroy an entire species over 30 casualties. Watch us." The communication ended. Guan looked around the command center. Everyone was staring at the tactical displays showing human ships in position around Chitauri Prime. Ships that could destroy the planet and everyone on it. "Sir," he said quietly, "I recommend surrender." War Prime Thaxic was silent for a long moment. He was a warrior who had never retreated from any battle, but he was also responsible for the survival of his species. "Send the surrender signal," he said finally. As the message went out, the joke was about how humans think they're important when they're just loud children with primitive toys. The morning started like any other on New Jeju. Colonial Administrator Bayom stood on the observation deck of the main settlement, watching the sun rise over the endless fields of grain that stretched to the horizon. It was a peaceful world, one of the few that humans had been allowed to colonize under their probationary status. The colony had been growing for 12 years. Families from Earth had come here to build new lives. They grew food, raised children, and created a small piece of human civilization 47 light years from home. It was exactly the kind of quiet, harmless activity that the Galactic Council expected from humanity. Biom's morning routine was interrupted by an urgent communication from his assistant. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from an unknown vessel. They're requesting immediate contact with colony leadership." "Unknown vessel?" Biom frowned. The colony was far from major shipping routes. They received supply ships from Earth every few months, but nothing was scheduled for weeks. "Yes, sir. Large ship, configuration unknown. They're broadcasting on official Galactic Council frequencies." Biom made his way to the communication center. The main screen showed a ship unlike anything he had seen before. It was massive, easily 10 times larger than the biggest human vessels. Its surface was covered in sharp angles and dark metal that seemed to absorb light. He recognized the design from intelligence briefings. Chitauri. The face that appeared on the screen made his blood run cold. The alien was clearly high-ranking, its exoskeleton marked with the scars and modifications that indicated a veteran warrior. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. "I am War Commander Claxvel of the Chitauri Hegemony. You will identify yourself." "I'm Administrator Biom of the New Jeju Colony. This is human territory under Galactic Council jurisdiction. State your business here." The Chitauri's mandibles clicked in what Biom had learned was their equivalent of laughter. "Human territory. Your council membership grants you no protection from legitimate expansion. The hegemony has need of this world." "This world is already colonized," Biom said, keeping his voice steady. "There are 40,000 humans living here. We have full legal claim under galactic law." "Had full legal claim," Claxvel corrected. "The hegemony requires fertile worlds for our next breeding cycle. Your presence here is an obstacle that will be removed." The communication screen showed a document. Official Galactic Council letterhead. Biom felt sick as he read it. The Council had approved Chitauri expansion into this sector. The human colony was to be relocated to more suitable territory. "You have 72 hours to evacuate," Claxvel continued. "Take only personal belongings. All infrastructure and agricultural development will become Chitauri property." "This is our home," Biom said. "These people have built their lives here. Where are we supposed to go?" "Not our concern." "You have 72 hours. The transmission ended. Biom immediately called an emergency meeting of the Colony Council. The 5 elected representatives who helped him govern New Jeju gathered in the council chamber, their faces grim as he explained the situation. "They can't do this," said Councillor Hyejeon. a former lawyer who had helped write the colony's legal charter. "We have rights under our membership agreement. Our membership agreement gives us rights that can be overruled by council majority vote," Biom replied. "Apparently they voted. Without asking us," said another councillor. "Without even notifying us until after the decision was made." Biom activated the long-range communication system and sent an urgent message to Earth. The response came back 6 hours later. President Yujin herself appeared on screen, flanked by Admiral Taehyun and other senior officials. "We've been in contact with the Galactic Council," she said. "They confirm the Chitauri expansion authorization. They suggest that the new Jeju colonists relocate to one of our other approved worlds." "Which worlds?" Biom asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. K447, M223, or L891. The dead worlds. Airless rocks with no water, no soil, nothing that could support human life without massive technological support that the colony couldn't afford. "In other words, they want us to die quietly," Biom said. "President." Yujin's expression was carefully neutral, but Biom could see the anger in her eyes. "We are exploring all diplomatic options. In the meantime, begin evacuation preparations. That's an order." The connection ended. News of the evacuation order spread through the colony within hours. 40,000 people were being told to abandon everything they had built and move to worlds that couldn't support human life. The reaction was what Biom expected: anger, fear, desperation. Some families began packing immediately. Others refused to leave. Most were somewhere in between, hoping for a miracle that everyone knew wasn't coming. Teacher Somin gathered her students in the school auditorium. These children had been born on New Jeju. It was the only home they had ever known. "How do you explain to a 10-year-old that they have to leave everything behind because aliens need their planet for breeding? Are we going to die?" asked Hanul, a bright girl who always asked difficult questions. "No," Somin said, hoping she wasn't lying. "We're going to be relocated to other worlds. It will be an adventure." The children weren't stupid. They could see the fear in the adults' faces. They knew that something terrible was happening. On the second day, the Chitauri ships began arriving. Not just the war commander's vessel, but dozens of others. Transport ships, construction vessels, and most ominously, military escorts. They took up positions in orbit around New Jeju, blocking any escape routes. The evacuation was proceeding slowly. There simply weren't enough ships to move 40,000 people and their belongings in 72 hours. The colonists were being forced to leave behind everything except basic personal items. Biom received another communication from War Commander Claxvel. "Your evacuation is proceeding too slowly," the alien said. "We will provide encouragement." "What kind of encouragement?" Biom asked. "Observe." The orbital bombardment began immediately. Not on populated areas, but on empty sections of the planet. Agricultural areas that were supposedly unused. The message was clear: cooperate or face the consequences. But the areas weren't empty. 3 farming communities were in those zones. And worse, the colony school had organized field trips to the agricultural research stations. Somin was leading one of those trips when the bombardment began. She had taken 30 children to see the experimental crops that might help improve food production. They were in the transport vehicle heading back to the main settlement when the sky lit up with energy beams. The children pressed their faces to the windows, watching the light show. They thought it was beautiful. They didn't understand what they were seeing. "Teacher, what's that?" asked Bora, pointing at the bright flashes on the horizon. "I don't know," Somin lied. She knew exactly what it was. She tried to contact the colony, but communications were being jammed. The transport was old, one of the first vehicles brought to the colony. Its shielding was minimal. When the energy beam struck the ground near them, the electromagnetic pulse fried every electronic system in the vehicle. They were stranded 20 kilometers from the main settlement, with 30 children and no way to call for help. Somin tried to keep the children calm while she figured out what to do. The vehicle wouldn't start. The radio was dead, but they could walk. 20 kilometers wasn't that far. They made it 3 kilometers before the second wave of bombardment began. This time the beams weren't aimed at empty ground. War Commander Claxvell had decided that the evacuation needed more encouragement. The energy beam struck directly at the transport route between the agricultural areas and the main settlement. The beam that hit Soman's group vaporized everything within 100 meters. 30 children, their teacher, and their dreams of growing up on a world they called home. Gone in an instant. Biom received the casualty report 2 hours later. Rescue teams had found the wreckage. No survivors. The children had been identified by DNA traces in the debris field. He stared at the list of names. Hanul, who always asked difficult questions. Bora, who wanted to be a farmer like her parents. 30 bright young lives ended by aliens who saw them as obstacles to be removed. The evacuation continued. More ships arrived from Earth to help transport the colonists. But the damage was done. 30 children were dead, and no one was going to pay for it. Biom sent the casualty report to Earth. Along with his resignation, he couldn't be part of a government that would abandon its own children to alien violence. The response came back faster than he expected. Not from the civilian government, but from Admiral Taehyun himself. "Received your report," the Admiral said. His face on the screen was calm, but his eyes were like ice. "Continue evacuation operations. All colonists are to be safely relocated to temporary facilities on Luna Base. Full support will be provided." "What about justice for the children?" Biom asked. "Justice will come," Taehyun replied. "But not yet. Continue your duties, Administrator. Your people need you." The evacuation was completed on schedule. 40,000 colonists, minus 30 children, were transported to temporary shelters near Earth. The Chitauri moved in immediately, beginning construction of their breeding facilities. The Galactic Council issued a statement pre. The war room beneath Luna's surface had never seen activity like this. For 15 years it had been used for planning and preparation. Now it was the nerve center of humanity's first galactic war. Supreme Commander Min-jae stood before the massive, tactical display that showed the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated Chitauri space. Blue showed human territory. Yellow marked the locations of human sleeper assets that had been positioned throughout alien space over the past decade and a half. Around the circular table sat the finest military minds humanity had ever produced. These officers had spent years studying every aspect of galactic warfare. They knew their enemy better than the enemy knew themselves. "Report," Min-jae said. Admiral Seojin, head of naval operations, spoke first. "All fleet units are ready for deployment. The hidden shipyards have completed production of the war fleet. 800 ships of the line fully equipped with our most advanced technology, 200 support vessels, 50 specialized strike craft." "Personnel status?" Min-jae asked. General Hyunwoo, commander of Special Forces, stood. "All units are at full readiness. Sleeper agents in Chitauri space report ready for activation. Deep penetration teams have been in position for 2 years. Every major Chitauri military installation, government facility, and population center has been scouted and mapped." Intelligence Chief Airy activated her portion of the display. "Complete. Psychological profiles on Chitauri leadership are available. We know their decision-making patterns, their weaknesses, their fears. More importantly, we know how they think about warfare. They rely on overwhelming force and intimidation. They have never faced an enemy that could match their technology or exceed their tactical planning." Logistics Coordinator Chae-young highlighted supply lines on the map. All logistical requirements are met. Munition stockpiles exceed projected needs by 300%. Fuel and spare parts are pre-positioned throughout the operational area. We can sustain full-intensity operations for 2 years without resupply from human space. Min-jae nodded. The planning had been perfect. But this war would not be won by logistics alone. "What is the recommendation of this council?" he asked. The room was quiet for a moment. These officers had spent their careers preparing for this decision. They had studied history, analyzed every possible outcome, considered every moral and practical implication. Finally, Admiral Seojin spoke. "Complete extermination of the Chitauri species. The words hung in the air. Around the table, every officer nodded their agreement. Not conquest, Seojin continued. Not occupation. Not forcing them to change their behavior. Extinction. Every Chitauri world rendered uninhabitable. Every Chitauri ship destroyed. Every member of their species eliminated. The legal implications? Asked Min-jae. There are no legal protections for species that commit genocide against council members, replied legal advisor Kyung-won. The Chitauri killed human civilians, including children, in what they called a peaceful relocation. Under galactic law, that constitutes an act of war. We have the right to respond with appropriate force. And extermination is appropriate force? Min-jae asked. They made it appropriate, said psychological warfare specialist Ye-jun. They chose to kill children to make a point. They chose to treat human lives as worthless. They chose to laugh about it afterward. They set the rules of engagement. The tactical display zoomed in on Chitauri space. 17 star systems, 43 inhabited worlds, an estimated population of 12 billion Chitauri across their entire civilization. Timeline? Min-jae asked. Strategic Coordinator Jisoo activated her analysis. Complete military operations can be concluded within 72 hours of initiation. The Chitauri fleet is concentrated in predictable patrol patterns. Their defense installations follow standard galactic design principles that we have studied extensively. Their population centers are located for efficiency, not defense. They have no idea what's coming, added Intelligence Chief Airy. Their intelligence services monitor us, but they're looking for signs of primitive human technology and tactics. They cannot detect our actual capabilities because they cannot imagine them. What about the rest of the galaxy? Min-jae asked. How will other species react to the complete extermination of the Chitauri? Terror, said Ye-jun without hesitation. Which is exactly what we want. The other species need to understand that there are consequences for treating human lives as worthless. Fear will make them more careful in their future dealings with humanity. Min-jae walked around the table, studying each officer's face. These were good people, moral people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. The fact that they were unanimously recommending genocide was not lost on him. Personal opinions, he asked. Not as officers, but as human beings. Are we doing the right thing? Commander Heejin, the youngest officer present, spoke first. They murdered children, sir. Children who were on a school trip to see experimental crops. They vaporized them to make a point about how powerless humans are. How is extinction worse than what they've already shown they're willing to do? They called it encouragement, said Admiral Seojin. They killed 30 kids to encourage the rest of us to evacuate faster. That wasn't an accident or collateral damage. That was calculated terrorism. The Galactic Council called it a peaceful resolution, added General Hyunwoo. 30 dead children and they called it peaceful. What message does that send to other species about the value of human lives? Min-jae looked at the display showing Chitauri space. 12 billion lives. But he also thought about the 30 children who had died, because aliens saw them as obstacles to be removed. There's another consideration, said Strategic Coordinator Jisoo quietly. If we respond with anything less than overwhelming force, we establish the precedent that human lives can be taken with minimal consequences. Every species in the galaxy will be watching to see how we respond to this. And if we respond with genocide? Min-jae asked. Then every species in the galaxy will understand that killing humans has unacceptable consequences, Jisoo replied. They will be much more careful about how they treat us in the future. Min-jae returned to his position at the head of the table. Around him, the most capable military leaders humanity had ever produced, waited for his decision. Authorization codes? He asked. The officers began entering their command codes into the secure terminals. One by one, the authorization lights turned green. The machinery of war that had been built over 15 years was ready to activate. Min-jae entered his own codes. The master authorization light turned green. Ladies and gentlemen, he said quietly, humanity is now at war with the Chitauri hegemony. Our objective is the complete elimination of their species. Rules of engagement are unlimited. No Chitauri military or civilian targets are off limits. No quarter will be given. No surrender will be accepted. He paused, looking around the room, one more time. They wanted to teach us about the consequences of being weak. Instead, they're about to learn about the consequences of being cruel. The room erupted into controlled activity. Orders were transmitted to fleet commanders throughout human space and beyond. Sleeper agents received their activation codes. Strike. Teams began moving toward their targets. In hidden bases throughout the galaxy, human ships that had been disguised as civilian craft began revealing their true nature. Weapons systems that had been hidden inside mining equipment powered up. Soldiers who had been living as traders and researchers for years began moving toward their assigned targets. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity had spent 15 years preparing for this moment. Admiral Seojin coordinated the naval deployment. All fleet units execute Operation Starfall. Primary targets are Chitauri military installations and government centers. Secondary targets are population centers and industrial facilities. Leave nothing functional. General Hyunwoo managed the Special Forces insertion. All deep penetration teams commence sabotage operations. Disable their communications, their transportation networks, their power grids. Make it impossible for them to coordinate a defense. Intelligence Chief Eri activated the electronic warfare systems. Initiate communication jamming across all Chitauri space. Cut them off from each other and from any potential allies. The war would be decided in the first few hours. The Chitauri had never faced an enemy with humanity's level of preparation and technological advancement. They had no idea what was about to hit them, but before the shooting started, there was one more message to send. Min-jae activated the emergency diplomatic channel to Chitauri High Command. The face that appeared on the screen was War Commander Klaxavel, the same alien who had ordered the bombardment that killed 30 children. Human, the Chitauri said with obvious amusement. Do you call to surrender your other colonies before we are forced to provide more encouragement? No, Min-jae said calmly. I'm calling to inform you that you have made a mistake. You killed human children. You thought there would be no consequences. What consequences could you possibly? Klaxavel began. You're about to find out, Min-jae interrupted. You have 1 hour to contemplate what you've done. Then your species ends. He cut the transmission. Around the war room, the final preparations were completed. The hidden fleet was in position. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's million-year history. Representatives from every major species had gathered in the Great Chamber, but instead of the usual calm discussions about trade and territory, there was panic in the air. High Counselor Vexithari's crystal body was flashing rapid colors that indicated extreme agitation. Around the chamber, other species showed their own signs of distress. The nebulans were swirling in tight, anxious patterns. The lithoids' rock forms were grinding against themselves. Even the usually calm Aquarians were moving restlessly in their water tanks. The Chitauri hegemony no longer exists, announced Intelligence Coordinator Zephal, his gas cloud form darker than usual. 17 star systems, 43 worlds, 12 billion individuals, all under human control as of 6 hours ago. The chamber erupted in shocked conversations. Dozens of different languages filled the air as species tried to understand what they were hearing. Impossible, said War Prime, Gaxth of the Lithoids. Humans have maybe 50 ships, primitive technology. They couldn't defeat a local patrol, much less an entire galactic power. The evidence is undeniable, Zephal replied. Our monitoring stations recorded the entire operation. Human ships appeared throughout Chitauri space simultaneously, advanced, vessels using technology we don't recognize. The Chitauri military was eliminated in under 4 hours. Ambassador Neon stood at the human delegation podium. She was different from the previous human representative. Where Ambassador Jiho had been nervous and eager to please, this woman radiated calm confidence. Her uniform was military in style, and her bearing suggested someone accustomed to giving orders rather than making requests. The floor recognizes the human representative, Vexthari said, his voice like breaking glass. Thank you, High Counselor, Neon said. I bring greetings from the Human Defense Force and an explanation of recent events. Explanation. The voice came from the Vorthak section. You've committed genocide. You've destroyed an entire species. Correction, Nyan said calmly. The Chitauri species continues to exist. Their military has been eliminated, and their government has been dissolved. But civilian populations have been relocated to suitable worlds. No genocide has occurred. You destroyed their entire civilization. They destroyed 30 of our children. We responded proportionally. The chamber fell silent. Every species present had heard about the incident at the human colony, but most had dismissed it as a minor border dispute. 30 deaths do not justify the elimination of an entire stellar nation, said Counselor Yathri of the Aquarians. Don't they? Nyan asked. For 15 years, this council has treated human lives as worthless. When the Chitauri killed our children, you called it a peaceful resolution. When we protested, you ignored us. When we demanded justice, you told us to accept what had happened and move on. The Chitauri expansion was approved by proper council procedures, Vexthari said. The relocation was handled according to established protocols. Your protocols allowed for the murder of children, Nyan replied. So we decided to establish our own protocols. She activated a display that showed the Sol system. The council members had seen these images before during humanity's initial membership request. A small star with a few inhabited worlds, minimal industrial development, primitive technology. This is what you thought human space looked like, Nyan said. The display changed. Now it showed the same system, but with layers of hidden infrastructure revealed. Massive industrial complexes built inside asteroids, shipyards that dwarfed anything the aliens had ever constructed, defensive platforms that bristled with weapons of unknown design. This is what human space actually looks like, she continued. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. The scope of the hidden construction was staggering. How had they missed something this massive? For 15 years you ignored us because you thought we were primitive and harmless, Nyan said. You were half right. We are harmless to species that treat us with respect. But we are not primitive. How? Asked Zefal. Our intelligence services monitor all member species. How did you hide construction on this scale? You monitored what you expected to see, Nyan replied. Mining ships, cargo haulers, industrial development appropriate for a minor species working worthless star systems. You never looked closely, because you assumed there was nothing worth seeing. The display changed again, showing human ships decloaking throughout the galaxy. Not just in human space, but everywhere. Near every major alien world, every strategic location, every critical facility. You placed weapons throughout our territory? Vexathari's crystal form was flashing angry reds and oranges. We placed defensive assets in international space, Nyan corrected. Over 15 years, thousands of human vessels have traveled through the galaxy on legitimate trade and diplomatic missions. Some of those vessels remained at strategic locations. Sleeper ships, said War Prime Gaxeth. You've been positioning weapons platforms throughout the galaxy for 15 years. We've been preparing for the day when your dismissal of human lives would force us to defend ourselves, Nyan said. That day came when you allowed the Chitauri to murder our children. The chamber was filled with urgent conversations as the implications sank in. If humans had weapons positioned throughout the galaxy, no world was safe from retaliation. What do you want? Asked Vexthari finally. Reformation of galactic governance, Nyan replied. The current system allows strong species to prey on weak ones with minimal consequences. That system ends now. You can't dictate terms to the entire galaxy, protested Counselor Yathri. Can't we? Nyan asked. Our fleet eliminated the Chitauri military in 4 hours. The same fleet is now positioned throughout galactic space. Every world, every station, every ship in the galaxy is within range of human weapons. I would say we're in an excellent position to dictate terms. You're threatening genocide against every species in the galaxy? Vexthari's colors were cycling rapidly through shock, fear, and anger. We're offering protection to every species in the galaxy, Nyan corrected. Under human oversight, there will be no more wars of expansion, no more strong species preying on weak ones, no more incidents like the murder of our children. And if we refuse? Then you can ask the Chitauri how that worked out for them. Fleet Commander Ryan of the Vorthak stood. His crystal form was impressive, nearly 4 meters tall, and glowing with internal light. The civilized species of this galaxy will not submit to human dominance. We will form a defensive alliance and drive you back to your little corner of space. You're welcome to try, Naeon said calmly. We outnumber your ships 1,000 to 1, Ryan continued. Our technology is proven over millions of years. Your recent victory over the Chitauri was a surprise attack that cannot be repeated. Actually, said a new voice, you outnumber our visible ships about 10 to 1. But that's not the real problem. The voice came from Admiral Jihoon, who had just entered the chamber. Behind him walked a group of human military officers whose uniforms indicated high rank. They moved with the confident bearing of professional soldiers. The real problem, Jihoon continued, is that you're still thinking in terms of old-style galactic warfare. Fleet against fleet, technology against technology. But we didn't defeat the Chitauri with superior numbers or better ships. How did you defeat them? Asked Ryan. We studied them, Jihoon replied simply. For 15 years we studied every species in the galaxy. Your technology, your tactics, your psychology, your weaknesses. We know how you think, how you fight, how you break. He activated his own display. It showed detailed analyses of every major alien species, military capabilities, technological weaknesses, psychological profiles, strategic vulnerabilities. The Vorthak rely on energy shields and superior numbers, he said. But your shields fail when exposed to specific harmonic frequencies that disrupt your crystal matrix. Ryan's form flickered as if the mere mention of the weakness affected his energy patterns. The Nebulans use quantum consciousness transfer to coordinate their fleets, Jihoon continued. But that same network becomes a vulnerability when the quantum field is artificially destabilized. Zephal's gas cloud contracted nervously. The lithoids depend on their physical durability and slow, methodical tactics, but your rock forms become brittle and weak when exposed to rapid temperature fluctuations. Every species, Jihoon said, looking around the chamber, has weaknesses. We know all of them. You're bluffing, said Ryan, but his light was dimming. Am I? Jihoon smiled. Your defensive alliance is gathering ships in the Kepler sector, 8,000 vessels from a dozen species, the largest military force in galactic history. How did you? Ryan began. We know because we've been monitoring your communications for 15 years, Jihoon interrupted. We know your battle plans, we know your deployment schedules. We know which ships have mechanical problems and which commanders are incompetent. It won't matter, Ryan said. 8,000 ships against your few hundred. We will overwhelm you with pure numbers. Captain Youngman, Jihoon said to one of the officers behind him, show them what they're actually facing. The display changed, to show the Sol system from the perspective of the alien fleet approaching it. The human ships they could see were few and appeared primitive.